If your financial advisor hasn't helped you create a passive income blueprint, what are you waiting for? Keep watching for why a blueprint is critical and how to get your advisor to build one with you. And keep watching to the end because I'm going to give you specific examples of how our clients have been able to do this as well. All right, so first of all, the one question you need to ask is, does your financial advisor only focus on retirement? What is their main focus? I know when I was trained as a traditional financial advisor over 20 years ago, they were always focused on taking your money and getting you to retirement, right? It was always about that. Put your money in mutual funds or annuities, and then you can retire someday. Is that all they focus on? Do they focus on other things? How about the here and now? Do they focus on monthly cash flow? Do they focus on the things such as how do you actually create and free up more money so that you have more money to invest? So there are some financial advisors that do a good job of this. Some of them will even go into paying down debt strategies and things like that. They might talk about some tax saving strategies. My experience has been they really don't do that. Why? Because they don't get paid to tell you how to do that. They get paid based on assets under management, or as they like to say, AUM, right? Assets under management. So if you give them $100,000, they make 1%, they're making $1,000 a year off of it. This is why if you only have $50,000 with a financial advisor, they might just say, I'll talk to you later. I'll answer your email in a week or two. That's typically what happens. Now, if you've got $1 million, hey, they're getting paid $10,000 a year. They love you, right? They're like, hey, you helping put my kid through college. I'll pick up the phone for you, right? So you gotta ask yourself, are they only focused on retirement or are they focused on the here and now, which is important, especially if you want a blueprint to creating passive income today, not when you're 65 years old. So ask them that, or ask yourself that. Are they honestly only focused on retirement or do they do other things? The second thing I'm gonna have you ask yourself is, what's their mentality? When I was trained as a financial advisor, the thing that I never saw, even though I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I actually read it several times, and we all did. All the financial advisors in the office read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, yet we kept trying to talk ourselves into saying, yeah, we teach this. Yeah, we're all about creating, passive income, being an investor, right? Buy our mutual funds. That was our answer. But I would notice that the mentality we had around money was around accumulation, accumulating money, building that nest egg, as you hear us always say, right? Building that nest egg so that someday you can retire. Well, that's the accumulation mentality, and that's fine and dandy and all. But once again, is that only focused on retirement? Or what about an acceleration mentality? What about an income, passive income mentality? What about that? Those are two very different mentalities. Because when I was a financial advisor, my own personal goals, I wanted to retire at age 40. I wanted to retire early. Now, I was starting to be a financial advisor in my 20s, so I thought, great, I can do this. All I have to do is save up as much as I can, be as cheap as possible, turn down the heat in the wintertime, turn off the AC in the summertime, and hopefully I'll save enough money and scrap some crappy scraps together, and eventually I'll have about $2 million saved up in my mutual funds, especially if the market goes in my favor. Well, $2 million, why did I say that? Because I believed you could live on 3% a year. Because even 20 years ago, we thought the whole 4% rule was bogus, right? We already knew, we could already see the writing on the wall that 4% was going to be too much with inflation, too much with of course, the conservative returns on a portfolio, all of those things, right? So I knew if I wanted $60,000 a year, I would need $2 million because 3% of $2 million is $60,000 a year. Now, back in the early 2000s, right, I believed $60,000 a year was living the life. $5,000 a month, I thought that would be incredible. What a comfortable life. I would love to have $60,000 coming in a year. Now, of course, 20 years later, now I'm in my 40s, my mid 40s. Now, of course, $60,000 a year doesn't sound like too much, does it? It's like what people can make almost out of high school, it seems like, or even just out of college without a degree. You can make $60,000 a year sometimes. And so that's one of the big things, that you have to have this accumulation mentality, but then you got to keep accumulating. I had another guy who talked with a financial advisor. He had $3 million sitting there. But of course, they said, if you keep going, if you want $500,000 a year of income, you got to keep saving. You got to get it up to over $20 million. And he's 52 years old. They said if you really keep saving a couple $100,000 a year, you might just get there. If the market smiles on you the right way, you might be able to get there by your mid-60s. This is a guy with $3 million. $3 million. That's incredible. You would think this guy would be easily financially free. Well, not according to accumulation mentality, especially when you're battling taxes and inflation and everything else and market returns. The third thing I have you consider is, are they recommending mutual funds or are they recommending alternative investments? Now, I have friends that are financial advisors, all of them good-hearted people. I'm not ripping on financial advisors in the sense that they're not good people. I will just tell you that they're going to recommend whatever they get paid on. For example, ask a real estate agent, hey, should I be buying real estate? Do you ever think a real estate agent's gonna tell you, you know what, bad time to buy real estate. Don't buy real estate. In fact, spend the next 5 years, don't buy any real estate. You should just buy stocks. You're not gonna hear a real estate agent say that. Why? Because they get paid commissions off of you buying real estate, of course. They're self-interested in that. Of course they're gonna tell you to buy real estate. The problem with the financial advisor world is when they have a securities license, they are licensed to sell mutual funds. This does not make them any more brilliant. I can tell you that because I had a securities license until 2005. I dropped it after that point. But you do not become a financial expert overnight by having a securities license. It just gives you the license to sell mutual funds. Therefore, you're not going to recommend other things. I know this because in my office, when we were working there, and I did this for several years, we would not recommend real estate investing. In fact, we'd tell people, look at the charts. The chart since 1928 shows you that real estate didn't perform that well. It just kept up with inflation. But stock market, that $1 became $10,000 in 80 years, 90 years, right? We would show them kind of crap, hoping that they would believe it. And the truth is that's not the case. They're not going to recommend buying real estate because they don't sell real estate. That's why. They're going to recommend investing in what they sell. And that's true across the board. I don't fault them for that, but you have to question where the advice is coming from. What if those alternative investments might be the best thing for you? What if it's not mutual funds? What if you have better chance of freedom by being in alternative investments? Just so you know, because of the alternative investments, that's why I don't have a securities license anymore, because I couldn't keep doing this anymore. I couldn't keep selling mutual funds knowing that there's other options that could be better. The fourth thing you should ask is, do they show you how to create passive income now? Not for retirement, because let's be honest, will we even be alive for retirement? Do we know we'll be alive next week? I hope you are. I really do. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future. What if you're trying to claim someday? What if you start humming Cats in the Cradle, saying that someday you'll have all that freedom to spend with your family, and then they don't want to spend time with you anymore? Right? What happens down the road then? Who shows you how to create passive income today? And I'll tell you, in the financial advising world, that's never come up. At least not with me. There might be like the rebels out there. And if you are a rebel financial advisor, I love you, right? That's why we call ourselves anti-financial advisors, because I'm not a financial advisor and I don't want to be a financial advisor anymore because of that reason, right? But are they showing you how to create passive income now? What if you want to have that freedom today? What if you want to have time with your kids while they still want to spend time with you? I've got a bunch of teenagers. I'm telling you, when they get to that teenage level, their lives start to get involved, they start having more activities, and pretty soon they're off to college, and then where's the time gone? It's gone. Where's that freedom? Where's that chance for you to be able to spend that time that you could have had with your kids? But no, you gotta scrimp and save, and like I said, for me, turn off that heat, turn off that AC, so you can save up enough so that maybe you'll have enough money by the time you're 40 years old or 50 years old, whatever it is. But did you sacrifice all that potential time you could have enjoyed with your family right then? Now, I'll tell you, I've had several clients with this kind of example. I'm just gonna give a few. So one client in California, had $1 million in 401k. His financial advisor said, you can live on 3%, $30,000 a year. Not acceptable to him. He said, I don't want a $30,000 a year broke lifestyle. I want something more. We got him into alternative investments because we don't offer any investments ourselves. So we said, hey, here's some different examples. Here's some investments you could be doing. Even connected him with some of those deals, saying, hey, here's some people you can talk to. Here's some people that actually offer that kind of investment, like turnkey rentals where you don't manage the property. Here's some syndications, some of it with apartment buildings, some with oil and gas. You can do some of this stuff. He started to do that. His $30,000 a year went to $11,000 a month or $130,000 a year just by doing these alternative investments, something that his financial advisor had never recommended. I had another client where they're in their 40s, just like me. And they said, you know what? We want to take our kids out of the country. We want to give them experience outside the United States. We want to live the expat life. How do we do that? And I looked at their situation and said, hey, you know what? We sell off your house, which would allow you to be able to move anyways. Sell off your house. Don't make it a rental. Get the equity out. We can invest that plus some of the other savings you have over here. If we get this working for you, we can actually have enough money. And guess what? They generate over $3,500 a month of passive income. And what are they doing? They're working just part-time, virtually out of the country. She's actually got her own little business that she has. And they're still able to live in Mexico, teaching their kids, doing homeschooling, and doing the things they want. The third guy, remember that guy I mentioned that had $3 million in his account? He wanted $500,000 a year. I said, listen, if I were to give you real numbers, that financial advisor was over-promising. You would probably be in your 70s before you could live on $500,000 a lifestyle. I said, instead, we can get that $3 million working for you right now. That $3 million could generate $300,000 a year. You're already adding $200,000 a year, that's $500,000. That next year you go from $300,000 a year, now you got an extra $500,000 to invest. Now you have $350,000. You're making a 10% return. Year after that, just over $400,000. I said within 3 to 4 years, you would be at the $500,000. You would still be in your mid-50s and more than financially free. Not just financially independent, he could do that in the first year, but financially free. That is what you can do with alternative investments. That's how you create passive income. And by the way, we've had plenty of clients that we've actually helped free up more cash, reduce their expenses, so then they have an easier time to get to their financial independence number 2. So there's things you can do with your cash flow today to free up more money and then invest it, and you're able to get financially independent within 5 to 10 years. That is the exciting thing that we like to do. Guys, if you think that's cool and you really want to retire early, check out this next video, how to plan for retirement in your 20s.